call the meeting to order. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young,
Here.
Commissioner Batty, Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Keen,
Here.
Commissioner Brink,
Here.
Chair Langness.
Present. We next have our Pledge of Allegiance. So for those able, we ask you to stand and join us in the nation's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United
of the
States
United
of
States of
America
America,
and to the
the
republic
republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
liberty
justice.
and justice for all.
Next is approving the agenda. Any commissioner like to make a motion for that? Commissioner Miller,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote on approving the agenda?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
Chair Langness.
Aye, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from August 12th, 2020. Is there a motion from any commissioner on the meeting minutes? Commissioner Miller,
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes. I read them as closely as I could, all 9 pages, and I think we got as best as we could. So Karen, you did a great job.
Thank you.
all right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
Chair Langness.
Aye, motion carries. Next on the agenda is a minor subdivision application, and this for commissioners is a recommendation to council. We do not have final authority on this item for 18425 July Avenue. And this does include a public hearing before we consider a motion. So for the applicant and any one that wishes to participate in the public hearing, how this will work tonight is we will first have staff present the report. Commissioners can ask questions, and then we'll allow the applicant to present anything additional that they wish to add. Commissioners may ask them questions. We'll then open up the public hearing. If you're interested in being in the public hearing, if you could write in the comments, or if you've already arranged with staff, we'll pull you on so that you can speak into the meeting. If you're at City Hall, we'll also pull you up there as well. And then we'll bring it back to commissioners for further discussion and or consideration of a motion. So Donovan, do you want to kick us off?
Certainly.
Thank you.
I'd like to present to Chair and the Planning Commission of Forest Lake the minor subdivision application for 18425 July Avenue. And Craig Coyle, who is with us tonight, is the applicant. Geneva Morstead is the owner. The parcel is located in the southeast corner of the city on July. It's currently a 20 acre parcel. The minimum lot size for this agriculturally zoned property is 10 acres with a 300-foot width. And what the applicant seeks to do here on this property that's vacant except for a house on the southwest corner there is to divide the property to become 2 equal-sized lots. And so here's the house in the southwest corner I mentioned. The bold line represents the new lot split line. The applicant, has provided just kind of representative, house lot here with primary and secondary septic fields, some approximate location of the wetlands that are on the property. And as part of this, we are requiring a 33-foot wide drainage utility and public road easement. And that is designated by that dashed line on the west side of the property to represent, half of the existing July Avenue right of way. And basically there is no environmental constraints to prevent this, there being a large enough house lot. And of course, this does not put the existing home into any sort of nonconformities as far as its location. And of course, a single family home is a permitted use in this agricultural zoning district, and it seems to me that's what the applicant intends to do if this minor subdivision is successful. With that, I'm happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
Commissioners, questions on the staff report? Seeing none. Thank you, Donovan. Craig, you're the applicant, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
We'll give you some time here to add anything that you wish as well.
All right. Well, thank you guys for the opportunity. I think as Donovan had mentioned, we're looking to just do a minor subdivision, splitting the current parcel into two pieces and looking to construct a new home out there. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Young.
It looks like you've got enough high ground, but you have had perk tests for your septic, or are you going to be doing a mound?
So we've already done all the tests for that, and the recommendation came back as a mound system.
Other questions of the applicant from commissioners? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Craig. Hang on though, because sometimes questions come up after the public hearing as well. So,
Sure.
we are, sorry, I lost my agenda here. We are at the public hearing. Donovan, do we have anyone at City Hall?
No, there's no one here at City Hall.
Okay, did anyone submit a comment via email?
No comments. There was one individual who received a public mailing of the notifying the public of this public hearing, and after a quick question regarding just what the application was about, subdividing the 20-acre parcel into two 10-acre parcels, there are no further questions or concerns from that caller.
Okay, then we'll move forward with opening the public hearing. And so any member of the public that wishes to speak, we'll pull you up. We ask that you state your name and address for the record, and then you can use a few minutes. Commissioners generally don't engage, but if you have a technical question, we might have staff respond to you during the public hearing, and then we'll close that and bring it back to the commissioners. So we're opening the public hearing. Karen or Donovan, do we have anyone online?
I do not show anybody online.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat either. So we will leave this open for about 30 seconds. See if anyone walks into City Hall or wishes to join here. All right, we still have no one wishing to speak. We will close the public hearing with no comments and open it up to commissioners for consideration and or motion. Commissioners? Commissioner Miller?
I would, without any questions, I would just make a motion that we we recommend to the city council approval of the proposed minor subdivision with the 3 staff recommendations.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Commissioner Young. Comments, discussion?
this one's pretty straightforward.
I agree, Commissioner Young. It's pretty straightforward, and I think it's very fitting of that area as well. And
Welcome, David.
Craig, I think this is one of the few that we've had this minimal discussion on from commissioners. So
Quick and easy. That's what we were hoping for.
so Karen, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
Chair Langness.
Aye, motion carries. Mr. Coyle, I wish you luck at the council and better luck building the new home.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, neighbor.
Thanks.
Yes, I believe Commissioner Young lives just a little bit north of you there. So,
Yep.
we are on to item number 7, the draft accessory dwelling unit development standards, and this is a discussion item. So Donovan, do you want to present?
Certainly. What I like to present, and this is something of a continuation of the, of the comp plan preparation, where, and actually it's a subject of many daily conversations, almost daily, I'll say, at least a couple times a month, where residents, property owners seek to expand their houses or create opportunities through converting existing accessory structures or adding on to houses to create independent household and living space. And currently within the city zoning code, there is that ability for the accessory apartment within a single family home, but it's limited to 600 square feet in size and must be within that main structure. So when I receive the inquiries around, can they convert a garage or other kind of shed, accessory structure, living space, I have to say no. But I believe that's something that could offer many Forest Lake residents opportunities for having a multi-generational household, allowing adult children to live with the homes, or just people who cannot really live independently, but through just personal choices, let's say the parents want the adult child to have that just some separation, and it can be other families, as well as rental possibilities for income, as well as maybe it's a situation where the the elder person can move into the smaller dwelling unit and a younger family moves into the larger one. Just increasing living housing affordability for some and living options for others. I included in the staff memo kind of description of what some of these look like to kind of make sure we understand that they can be detached structures, shown as in the blue image here, or be included within the existing dwelling, or be an add-on to the dwelling. And the standards I pulled together here pretty much match what St. Paul, City of St. Paul has adopted. Though, of course, adopting it more toward what I think provides a flexibility in Forest Lake without some of the other requirements, like for instance in the city of Minneapolis. Sorry? In the city of Minneapolis, for instance, actually, I'm sorry, it's in St. Paul, they require the principal dwelling to be one dwelling to be owner occupied. They actually own the lot. And then they have an actual annual kind of certification process, like basically annual permit of about $65. I'm not seeing that the city has the staff really to monitor that. And I'd like to get, of course, commissioner feedback on whether they think that's necessary. But for me, it's about to create the opportunities for these, these type of dwellings. And it seems to be like also taking from the city of Minneapolis experience that even though this sort of flexibility can be adopted by a municipality, there can be other considerations. And I think in Minneapolis, it's primarily cost that prevents them from being used, used by many different property owners to provide this type of dwelling unit. And so, I kind of leave it to you if you want to focus on, any one of these, but I've kind of looked at these as, providing like a minimum lot size, which roughly that's the lot size we find in the MXR2 zoning district in the gridded part of Forest Lake, grid street part of Forest Lake. And also restricting the size of these ADUs so that they do remain subordinate to the principal dwelling. So this is not meant to create a duplex, but it is meant to provide other options for basically for smaller households. We're not really disrupting in many cases like the single family dwelling unit density, but simply adding, and of course adding people, but as we find that households are getting smaller on average, we may, in some cases, we may be actually increasing the density of some neighborhoods because of the net, gross density, just simply, or density of people, I should say, because of those smaller households. And then something that I did check with, with Public Works, the city engineer, is the utility connection. And there actually is a provision within city code that if it's a principal structure and accessory dwelling unit located within the same structure in the principal structure, they must be supplied with the same public utility lines. And that's, also, there's a concern about creating too many service lines, too many hookups, which increases city maintenance of, of the trunk lines. And of course, greater costs if they need to be replaced. But I'd like to, it's kind of informal discussion, put these to Planning Commission and see, well, what do you think? And of course, this being just informal discussion and beginning the process of bringing things forward to Planning Commission for consideration as we look to do that comprehensive rezoning. With that, I'm open to any questions or just Planning Commission discussion.
Commissioners, Commissioner Brink.
I was wondering about a dwelling above a garage, like a detached garage, for example. Would that be included in this?
Yeah.
Like across the road from me.
What's that?
Yes.
Like across the road from me.
Oh,
Is that legal?
No, as a matter of fact, it's not.
Well, let's not get into enforcement, but answer to you, Commissioner Brink, to your question is yes, that would be considered a detached ADU.
Commissioner Miller, I think I saw your hand go up next.
Actually, Justin asked one of them, and Donovan answered it. I have a couple others though. I'm assuming, Donovan, that front yard, side yard, all the setbacks would still be as they are in order to build an accessible unit if someone wanted to build one on their lot?
Correct. Yeah, this doesn't provide any sort of flexibility for that. And it's not intended to, usurp those rules involving setbacks. And then in many cases, I think we're going to get requests for, shoreline properties to expand. And of course, that impervious surface maximums come into play, which of course, in many cases, there is the vertical option. One of those examples I showed in the visual is the attic type ADU. And the thing that I thought that I think is I don't believe it's in every single one of these, but that there should be shall be an interior stairway is one thing I included, so we don't have the exterior stairways, which I believe in this climate that doesn't work so well, as I think it starts to take it away from some of the single family appearance of homes as well.
Okay, just to continue, just a couple more questions. So whether it's front yard or backyard, provided it meets the setbacks, that would be allowed then?
Correct. There's nothing in the rules that I've proposed here that forbid that.
And then you mentioned 1 unit not to exceed, according to what you're requesting here, 800 square feet per lot size or per lot, regardless of the size of lot. So if you have a 10-acre piece of land, you still only can have the 1 accessory dwelling unit. You can't have multiple units.
That's as written, yes. I was looking, before we started here at the, at the comp plan language, which is the goal to allow development of separate accessory units and conversion of existing single family to multifamily structures, duplex or more, where appropriate. And maybe that's something that we look at, that, if there's some minimum lot size, that there are, there's detached structures of a larger size.
And that's regardless of zoning.
Well, yeah, that's the other piece that we have to look at, as it's still a single families or single family dwellings allowed. Is Forest Lake as a community, are they comfortable with creating those basically greater density without the minor subdivision, to split the lot?
So just as an example, if you were in an area where maybe there are detached townhomes already or townhomes already, and the association was in agreement and you wanted to build accessible dwelling units, an owner did, and they had, let's say they own the land there, could they do it based on the way this is written?
It's not, I didn't consider that scenario, but I think have to think of an example where that could happen. But basically it's one accessory unit and 1 principal dwelling is allowed on a single lot. Where there are townhomes allowed, I have to look and see if the zoning code even allows, single family, which essentially that's what you'd be making, creating on that
Yeah.
commonly owned lot.
Just curious. And then the 800 square feet, how did you derive that number, just based on St. Paul?
That one, actually, I looked at what was the maximum garage size for those non-riparian lots. That, I didn't use any kind of great science there, but I wanted to, I don't recall what the St. Paul one was, square footage max, but I want a number that was, that would be allow for some dwelling space, but still not, still below that duplex, living space level.
Thank you.
Other comments, commissioners? Commissioner Young?
It says that if the parking requirement is met for the principal 1-family dwelling, no additional parking is required. And I have some real concerns about that, because you can essentially double the number of humans in the house and significantly increase the number of vehicles. And we do ban parking, on-street parking, for a significant amount of the year here. So I do have some concerns about the parking requirement. And I think that if you're going to double your dwelling units and the number of folks, because if you don't have the staff to enforce some of the rules, as you mentioned, then you certainly don't have staff to enforce number of vehicles and how that would play out on one property. And again, I'm going to look at what I've got around here, and there are a significant number of single-family homes that have in excess of 7 or 8 vehicles. Most of them work, but that is a concern, especially as families are having grown children and their kids come home, and this becomes an economically desirable. I like the fact that to me, this is a affordable housing opportunity. But the devil will be in the details, and I foresee a significant number of variances coming forward with this. The first ones are going to be with respect to exterior stairs. I mean, that one I expect right away. I've got a couple other things, but let some other folks talk.
Commissioners? I can ask my questions as well. Donovan, the 7,500 square foot piece, did you take into consideration to frame it in a way that it would be like a square footage of buildable lot size versus total lot size that is on the property, so that you can eliminate considerations of significant wetlands where you're then cramming high density in one portion of the lot versus?
Oh, good question. Basically, the 7,500 square foot is that 50 by 150 lot that we see through much of the downtown area. And that excludes many lake lots that are kind of more of that, like around 5,000 square foot level, that 50 foot by 100 foot lot. And this doesn't, it doesn't take away, there is a 20-foot wetland setback for any type of structure. So I could, if you're down at that lower end around that 7,500 square foot, I don't really think there's much of a case, much of a way to have much of a, accessory dwelling unit, except that one above the, in the garage second floor, for instance, or else just the attached unit. Are you suggesting maybe there should be a kind of a maximum percentage of housing, for like net lot size, percentage maximum?
Yeah, so on the memo, it's bullet point 1 for those looking. The 7,500 square foot is very specific to the detached ADU versus the attached. And so my concern is that a lot of lots in our city, not necessarily on the lake, but that back up to wetlands that maybe cover half their property or more, that they're going to cram these all the way up by the front and potentially create greater density in areas where they might only have, we'll say, 3,000 square feet of buildable property on a lot, whereas I think your intent is they have to have a sizable enough lot to actually fit this stuff.
Mhm.
And I don't have specific language for you, but I just kind of want that consideration to be thought of as you're developing it,
Okay.
if that should come into play. And if the setbacks for wetlands and stuff are enough that doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. Commissioner Young,
Yeah, Chair, that goes right back into into the variance concern. You know, how frequently do we have the variances on impermeable surface and building toward a wetland and I understand the stories and the unique family situations that occur, but if we're going to do this, then we need to consider where some of those opportunities are going to be and where the dwellings are. I do have a real concern on these that in many places in our city that are not on water and are not on sewer, how are we going to deal with septic concerns and water concerns? And again, I'm thinking of something close to me. It's an issue. And it's affecting neighbors.
Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, I agree with Susan, and I think one other thing to consider, and I don't know how you do this, or just maybe it's just a thought, but if it's going to be used as a rental versus, you know, a family member, which is hard to really determine. I mean, and so maybe it just has to be regardless. Maybe there should be some sort of a license that you have to get to use that accessible dwelling unit that they have to pay for every year and renew, as well as then we can, you know, have it inspected in terms of making sure it has smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, meeting codes. You know, so a lot of cities have, you know, especially if you're going to use them as a rental, you have to have a license for that. And I think, you know, that would, you know, and I agree with Eric. I think it should be really considered to be not just the overall lot size, but, you know, if you've got a 7,500 foot lot, but your house takes up, you know, 4,000 square feet of that, and then you have wetlands on there and you got a 20-foot setback. I mean, literally they could put that house and have no yard. And so I think that's another consideration is, you know, we don't want to eliminate our green space and trees and things like that to build accessible dwelling units. But there's definitely a need for something like this because of the cost of, you know, with elderly people and the cost of, you know, a lot of places where the only options they have is to go into an apartment or an assisted living or a care facility. And some people just can't afford that, where the accessible dwelling unit could really help in that situation. But
Commissioner Miller brings up my second point, and Donovan, I don't know if you can address this as well, but my other concern is that people would build these, whether it's on top of the house, on side, or a detached, and then rent them out on these short-term online deals. And I forget the name of them, escaped me, but where you can
Airbnb.
Thank you, Commissioner Young.
or VRBO.
Is there anything in your language that would prevent that from happening?
No, nothing in this current language.
That part would concern me. I'm very open to finding affordable ways to have people live, you know, particularly elderly relatives and those sorts of scenarios. I don't necessarily want this policy to go in the direction to support a new model of Airbnb. If we went the Airbnb route, I would rather consider that completely separate from this. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that makes me think maybe there's more, if we went to if there was the kind of owner certification, 'cause it seems like if there was an owner on the lot, they would be ones who would be also impacted by any sort of, some of the negative impacts of Airbnbs. And they would be ones to curb any of those excesses, as an opportunity. I also wanted to just, I guess, jump back to Commissioner Young's statement about the parking. And that is something that I think in many ways is one that that's often been my concern, and I'll look much further into that. I'm just not sure what easy answers there can be with many of the front-loaded garage homes, because if we do require the same, let's say for a dwelling unit, the same amount of, or even half of what is required for your single family dwelling, I'm afraid of a lot of cars just being, covering front yards being parking lots. And that's also what I kind of wonder if this is something that maybe there's a site plan that is required for these, which, as a building permit process it is, but those are required most of the times for house additions. But also to show parking might be what we need to see as well.
Other questions? Otherwise, I can keep going here too. Donovan, we're really early in the conversation on this, so I gathering that and I've not seen like an engineering report or anything, and I'm imagining parts of our city would have capacity for extra sewer and water, and other parts would not. Have we? And I suspect that you haven't had that conversation yet on this policy, but if knowing that, I think we should have our city engineer take a look at it and at least comment on it so that we can develop the policy so that if we start hitting capacity, and if it's, in certain areas, there can only be a certain percentage of properties and it caps out, so that we're not exceeding those capacities and having excessive costs to the city to redevelop underground infrastructure.
Certainly.
Commissioner Young, did you have your hand up? Or
Well, as I'm starting to think about this, and Donovan has heard me talk about this before, if we're going up, looking at sun space and airspace on an adjacent property, if you've got properties that are houses that are fairly close together, and all of a sudden you have somebody going up a second story or on a 2-story house, a 3rd story, what are we doing with sun space and things like that?
Yeah, that seems to get toward that some of the kind of the anti-McMansion type bulk residential ordinances.
Yeah. And making sure that things fit with the character of the area.
Commissioner Miller, I saw your hand go up second.
Yeah, and not that anybody, is for higher taxes, but obviously there's got to be some sort of a tax on this building, this structure, because it's added value, and possibly even a separate tax because you might have separate utilities. So if you've got a 800 square foot structure that, could be valued at $100,000, we have to look at, I think, some sort of tax revenue from it if we go down that road.
Well, certainly with, added utility connections, the city receives those fees. There is, but I believe it's up to, the county as far as the assessor to, set those, value those improvements and, apply that property tax. Or maybe it's a, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's different ways for the city to capitalize on this, but in some sense, we are trying to make this an option for more, for individuals to take advantage of as well.
You hit the nail on the head, advantage of. Because somebody will figure a way around using it for what our purpose is, to just use it as revenue generators and don't want to give us anything.
Well,
Commissioner Young?
and that's the challenge of something like this, is trying to think of all the possibilities and all the permutations and commutations, and there's always going to be something that we didn't think about. I really do believe that you're going to see a significant amount of this in rural, in some of our rural estate, in some of our areas that are not served by sewer or water in the city. And I have some serious concerns about water and septic in those areas.
But wouldn't, I mean, the Washington County, regulates septic systems. Do you think that they wouldn't be permitting new systems, or would somehow not, kind of not set any systems to the right capacity with when they need to have more capacity?
Okay, you have first off, once that sucker's in, they don't come back, or at least they never have at my place. And a septic system is set for your 2.68 persons, and all of a sudden you've got 6.78 persons in the house. Is that septic system still going to work and still going to function? I can say no. But once something's in, it's really hard to say, okay, now you've built this and we've decided that your septic system isn't sufficient and you don't have room for a mound and it won't perk. So now you have to make that second dwelling unit vacant. Sort of like saying, we're going to jerk your certificate of occupancy because you haven't complied with your CUP. We just don't do that. And so we need to make sure that when we're going to be doing these, they're done right at the beginning, correctly at the beginning. And then as we think about what our unique city is, in St. Paul and Minneapolis, there are darn few properties that aren't connected to water and sewer already. There are darn few properties that aren't, that are, quite frankly, have enough parking as they are. So that's an issue down there. But trying to think of all of our possibilities and permutations and make sure that we do this right in the beginning is going to be really important.
My last question, Donovan, is, are you envisioning that we come up with a good policy here, we all agree on it, go yay, and then if somebody wants to do this, they just have to come into City Hall, get a building permit, and it's done?
That's my intention, yes.
Is there an alternative way that we could have that come to us?
Well, certainly, and we could create as a conditional use. That'd be the simple thing, and that would, and these could be basically use standards. A list that that addressed, for these development standards.
I almost wonder if that would be a better way to start this policy. Understand what comes forward, understand the complexities that we're not going to think of between now and whenever this would theoretically pass. And eventually then move away from that if we have a solid policy, a year or two down the road.
Yeah, sometimes think I'm not evil enough to write code like this, because you have to think of the most, all the ways that people want us undermine it and subvert it. And it's, sometimes I don't like doing that. Because I mean, I do agree with you, Commissioner Young, that people are going to try to find the ways to really, monetize it, or, just take advantage of it in a way that is not our intention. With all the, kind of what my little preamble is about, is all the right ways I talk to people, and I want to say yes to people that they can, have that adult child who can't really live on their own, but they want them to have it, individual living space nearby. Want to be able to give an option. But there are many people out there who don't have that sort of altruistic intent.
And on the same vein, what is the current fee for a conditional use permit application?
It's $1,000.
And the intent of this is to create affordable housing, and maybe with that consideration that this type of unit have a lower fee, knowing that that is the purpose. And I know we don't decide fees, but I think that should be something council consider for this very specific type of CUP as we're learning how it works. And then I think I saw Commissioner Keen raise his hand.
Yeah, I agree. I think there should be, for every application, there should be somebody checking it out. We don't have really an inspector that goes out and checks all this stuff out, but I think in the future, I know they have a new building inspector for next year on the books, correct? Donovan?
They are seeking an additional
Right.
inspector.
So I mean,
but they're more of a replacement, not an additional staff.
Oh, okay.
As a replacement. But there has been, jumping into budget discussion, there has been discussion of a enforcement officer who, if there was, like, say, an annual licensing fee for accessory dwelling units, that could help finance that type of position, say.
Well, so I kind of agree with Eric, where, I mean, if somebody comes in and wants to apply for something, it comes in front of us, they get inspected. So somebody in the city at least knows what the property looks like, what the setbacks are, and then go from there. Either they say to us, yes or no, whatever the city's recommendations are. But there should be, it can't just be let loose for anybody.
Other comments?
I really, really, really want to make this work. I just need to feel comfortable that we have thought about the permutations and that I have learned from what I've been seeing lately.
Commissioner Keen, and then I'll come back to Commissioner Miller.
Okay, last one. I mean, you have a house on a lot and there's 4 people in there and they have a sewer system, a mound system. And like Commissioner Young was saying earlier, that, okay, now they just double the size of it. So that's where the inspector comes in and says, yeah, you cannot put this size unit in. Maybe a smaller unit or something on that side, on that page.
Donovan, were you trying to say something?
Oh, well, no, I actually nodding in agreement. And I believe it's a case where, septic systems are permitted according to how many bedrooms, how many like bathroom facilities they're proposed with a house. And so they're kind of linked. It seemed to me like, essential piece of this and these areas with septic that they have to certify or somehow present a design that, and actually get, I don't know, it would be, approval before they build to that the Washington County believes the septic is adequate.
Commissioner Miller?
it's, there's always, lots of things to think about. And I was just thinking about, we have a lot of lake owners, we have a lot of people that, live on our lakes out here, whether it's Clear Lake or, Forest Lake or the other lakes. And I can just see someone coming in, getting a permit to put up one of these accessible dwelling units in their backyard, which now blocks the view of 3 or 4 of the neighbors of the lake. And I can see that would be a real challenge. So, I think there's got to be more thought about that. There's also, I know on Forest Lake, a number of people who have grandfathered, boathouses in, that I can see them taking and converting those to, little cabins because of the size. And all of a sudden, like Eric was mentioning, you got a VRBO or a, like short-term rental there that they're using because they have this beautiful lake view and this lake access, and they can get a premium price for it. So I think we have to definitely put more thought in, usages and conditions. But again, I'm with Susan and everyone else here. I mean, I know there's a need for this. I know that there's a lot of people in real estate that ask all the time about, is there a possibility I have a disabled child or I have a disabled elderly parent or something, and they can't afford to put them into, a care facility, and they want to keep them on their property, but their house doesn't allow for that, and they're looking at accessible dwelling units. I think there's a definite need for it for certain reasons, but it can't be just carte blanche.
Other comments? Commissioner Young?
Donovan, when you do video conferences or whatever, where are the cities nationally that have done these really well?
I'll look at that. I mean, I really want to produce some really preliminary talking points here. And I think, commissioners have done a great job of, challenging me on these and presenting, more of the local conditions that we need to be concerned about, from the rural areas to the lakeshore areas. But I can get back to you on that. And that's, there's some piece of that, here that I think that the real art here is to craft something that is, protects, homeowners, protects neighbors, provides, the options we want it to with people with the right intents, but not create too many rules that then become restrictive, and then Plan Commission does see lots of variances, or else the CUPs that you don't really want to approve. And that's kind of one challenge of looking for all these different options, nationally, because many of these are geared to these local conditions. But certainly I'd like to do more of a scan. Maybe it's a job for the zoning intern.
Commissioner Young?
Well, what Mr. Miller said just put something into my head, because I've been looking at the area along North Shore Trail, because we have something else that has been discussed there. And there are several of those lots near the church that are really, really long and already have 2 or 3 buildings on them, the boathouse and the extra garage and the yada, yada, yada. Those would be lots that I can see somebody wanting to do something with, but then right away I have the concerns about impervious surface and making sure about shoreline overlays, water and sewer issues. But we can't be considered arbitrary and capricious and say, yes, you can do this, and no, you can't do that. I really want to think this through. I want to figure out a way to make it happen, but I really, really want to think it through so that it's right for Forest Lake, and I don't mess up some future planning commission.
That's very kind of you.
Other comments? Commissioner Brink?
Yeah, I'll just kind of echo what everyone else has said. I guess collectively just not wanting to open up the floodgates here and just starting small, whether it just be a CUP, but yeah, you can totally see all these things coming at us if we were to do the former. So that's my 2 cents.
Other comments? Are you seeking anything else from us, Donovan?
No, actually, I think it's been this is the kind of discussion I wanted to have, which is people engage, commissioners engaging and, where I don't have to ask lots of questions or facilitate discussion. Because I really wanted to, get into some of these. And I think the whole idea of like overbuilding and, that kind of overbuilding on the, somewhat restricted lot is, ways to curb that so we don't try to avoid those situations where they're really it's just the lot can't accommodate ADU and in a tighter way, not just minimal lot size requirement. So no, I appreciate what everyone said.
I think it's a great topic. I appreciate that you're bringing it forward. It could be really good, but we got to do it right.
So I will take all these comments under advisement. This is not something I'm pushing through, for refinement at this time. I think, with these, we'll have another meeting on September 8th. And I'd like to bring forth another topic. Again, just trying to bring things forward so that we can move in a little more comprehensively with the rezoning.
Sounds good. We'll move on to other business. Councilmember Gerard, do you want to go first? You are on mute.
You'd think with all these meetings I attend, I could get the little technology down pat here, but I guess not. Thank you all. Good meeting tonight. You brought up a lot of subject matter regarding accessory dwellings, and you are absolutely correct. No matter what you do, we will have missed something, and we just have to accept that. But I think you went on a pretty wide path tonight. And I think it's good because, as Commissioner Young pointed out, we're not St. Paul. We have a lot of septics. We got a lot of larger land. We're at the lake. So it's a little bit different than what we have. So if I could just for 1 second put on my old planning commission hat. Chair Langness had mentioned maybe doing a CUP. If I could suggest possibly more of an interim use, because if this goes, then the interim use would just sort of disappear versus having something run with the land forever, which is what the CUP would do. So that's my planning commission hat, which I will now take back off. Last meeting, you had a great meeting. The city council was very impressed with that. And anything that you had brought forward that was already ready to go was passed at our last meeting. So unless you have questions for me, I have nothing else.
Questions for the council member? I'm not seeing any, but Councilmember Gerard, we always welcome your comments and discussion. So as our council liaison, feel free to chime in at any time. Commissioner Young?
It appears that the council is easily impressed.
Well, I could say, how bright do you think we are? You were on the commission with me. Come on.
All right. Well, anything else for council liaison? See none. Donovan, any other updates for other business?
Just to repeat that we do have an agenda for the September 8th meeting, and we are going to see the I guess we're still looking for the city council next meeting. The Minnesota Lakes final PUD review will occur, And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from commissioners.
Questions? See, oh, Commissioner Young?
Thank you, Donovan, for starting us down the path of the rewrite of the zoning code. There's going to be a lot of stuff there for us to think about, and taking it in chunks so that we can do some thinking and considering. I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
I think Commissioner Batty will appreciate it too. He's commented on that a few times. Karen, do you have any updates for us?
Thank you, Chair. No updates, just a minor correction. The actual meeting is on September 9th. So want anybody showing up on Tuesday. Nobody will be here. I won't be here, so the meeting won't start.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
We'll go around the room. Commissioner Miller?
Good.
Nothing? Okay, Commissioner Young?
Nothing.
Commissioner Keen?
Nothing.
Commissioner Brink?
Nope.
And I have no additional updates as well. That moves us into adjournment on the agenda. If anyone so wishes to make the motion. Commissioner
Motion
Keen?
to adjourn.
And is there a second? Commissioner Brink, is that a second?
It is.
It's a non-debatable motion. Karen, can you please take a roll call vote for us?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
and Chair Linus.
Aye. Motion adjourned. 8:01. Thank you, everyone.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Karen.